Hi everyone, my name's Mia Dunphy and I'll be co-hosting today's webinar with Jenny Hanks on volunteering in international R4D during COVID and beyond. Firstly, I just want to acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar from the lands of the Wurundjeri William people of the Kulin Nation. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you all watch or participate from today. And I pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to the land and waters. So to kickstart, for those who don't know much about us, we are researchers in agriculture for international development, or RAID, and we were founded in 2013 to support early to mid-career researchers in connecting, engaging, and supporting those with an interest in agriculture and international development. We are a program of the Crawford Fund and are also strongly supported by the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, or ACIAR. The links to our website and the various other websites have just been posted in the chat window for you to go and have a look at in your own time. So if you'd like to ask a question throughout the webinar, we ask that you type it into the Q&A platform and not the chat function, as this allows us to consolidate all of the questions all together. But please do feel free to use the chat function to introduce yourself. We very much welcome your written inputs and would love to know a bit about you. Similarly, on the Facebook Live video, we welcome questions in the comments section and do hope that you introduce yourself as well. So to kickstart, I will hand over to Jenny, who will be the other co-host today.
Thanks, Mia. I'll be introducing the panel, excuse me, in just a moment. But firstly, I'd like to explain why this great partnership has been developed to bring you opportunities in the future. One of the most common questions that RAID is asked by our amazing network is, how do I get involved in international agricultural research for development? A good question. And volunteering can be one way. We also know the value of early to mid-career researchers across countries sharing and learning from each other. So our partnership with the Australian Volunteers Program, VNUA, the Vietnam National University of Agriculture, and ACIAR aims to connect and develop the capacity of EMCRs both in Vietnam and in Australia. Our plan is that 4 volunteers will spend 1 month at VNUA to assist in a workshop, student conference, and provide mentoring. A 5th volunteer will be placed in country for a 3-month period to provide support in preparing and continuing activities. Of course, like everything, this has been postponed due to COVID-19. However, in the meantime, we're working on remote volunteering opportunities, and we hope that this will also involve about a month, but only around 6 hours per week. We'll be focusing on scientific skills, which are essential for international researchers and Australian EMCRs alike. For example, science communication and data collection within the context of the research process. So, now I'll get to the panel, and it's my very great pleasure to be able to introduce today's panel, who will talk about some of these opportunities and more broadly about the benefits of connecting, volunteering, communicating, and capacity development. In order of speaking today, we have Dr. Nguyen, who is an Associate Professor in the Faculty of Economics and Rural Development at VNUA. She's been key to developing this partnership and has worked with several international organisations, including the University of Tasmania and the International Livestock Research Institute, on vegetable and meat value chains. Then we'll be hearing from Hoang, who is the Volunteer Recruitment Officer in Vietnam for the Australian Volunteers Program. She's also worked in rural development support projects in North and Central Vietnam, and she's going to share her insights on working cross-culturally and much more. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Jay Anderson, who is a plant pathologist and who has melded her technical skills with people and consultation skills. A career highlight for Jay was her 6-week stint volunteering in Laos PDR with the Australian Volunteers Program and with the Crawford Fund. Then we'll hear from Robbie Mitchell, who is a science communicator and has helped people understand and appreciate science and technology a little better through social and digital media over the past 10 years. To finish, we'll hear from Eleanor, who leads the communication function and the education and training programs at ACIAR. She has worked for the Australian government on a diverse range of issues, including natural resource management, biodiversity, education, and training. So we also have some special guests on the chat. So I'm just catching up on the chat to see if they've introduced themselves so far. I can see that Beck Cotton, our RAID president, has introduced herself, which is fantastic. And we also have special guests, David Sharman-Selvage and Ali Lynch from the Australian Volunteers Program, who will introduce themselves now if they haven't already done so, and also Kathy Reid from the Crawford Fund. Before I hand over to our amazing panel, we have 2 quick poll questions so that we can find out a little bit more about you. So we're just about to share the poll question now. Is that up there now, Mia? Yep, okay, great. I think this is a common challenge. I can't actually see the poll, but I trust that you all can. And we just ask that you give us an indication of where you're joining in from today. Okay, looks like we're getting some responses in. And so thank you. It's great to see so many people tuning in. And as we've got there, if you can let us know in the chat if you selected the other option. Our second poll question is about the stage of career that you are in. So hopefully you'll be seeing that now as an option to select which stage you're in. Okay, looks like we're getting some poll answers in. I feel like I'm missing out by not being able to see it. I really wanted to see that data, but I hope that's interesting for all of you. Okay, so we do have a couple of people in the chat who haven't been able to see the poll. What we might do then is we'll just have a quick check to see if we've had any technical problems with sharing that with you, and come back to that after our panelists. So apologies for that. I wasn't the only one who couldn't see it then. Okay, so we'll move on now to introducing or handing over to our amazing panel. So first of all, we'll be hearing from Na, and we will be moving directly from one speaker to the next. Oh, it looks like we've got some poll results up before we do that. Hopefully everyone can see that one now. Looks like we had, yeah, great turnout from lots of spots, with Queensland leading the way.
Yeah, can I start now?
Yeah, so I'll just take off the poll questions there, Na, and hand over to you. So what we'll be doing is we'll hear first of all from Na, and then from Han, Jay, Robbie and Eleanor. And I'll hand over directly from one speaker to the next, and then we'll move on to our Q&A session. Okay, that's enough from me now, and over to you now.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon. My name is Nga, now working at the Vietnam National University of Agriculture. Let me briefly introduce all of you about the university. So VNUA was founded in 1956, and this is the leading education institution in agriculture in Vietnam. It is located in suburb of Hanoi. Takes you about 30 to 40 minutes driving, or you can reach the university by bus. We had, the university has a large campus that can accommodate for about 5,000 students. We also have a dormitory for foreigner students coming from Laos, Cambodia, Mongolia, and some other countries. We also have one guest house for the visitor who come for conference, workshop, and other working duty with the university. The university has 14 faculties offering various course and programs that from technical field to social science, such as vet medicine, agronomy, animal science, fishery, and to like accounting, agribusiness, economic, and others. We now offering 38 undergraduate programs, 34 master program, and 17 doctoral program. In undergraduate level, we collaborate with some foreign university to develop the advanced program that we use English, for example, crop science or agribusiness. The university is oriented to become a multidisciplinary university. And aside from offering regular and long course, we also offering the short course. One is the short course for exchange students from other country. For example, every year we host a summer program for Czech students, the undergraduate and also postgraduate Czech students to come on August and September. We also offer the short training course to improve the capacity of the graduate people, graduate student, and also staff that working in agriculture in different places in Vietnam. In the past, the VNUA also hosts international volunteer, including the graduate student and exchange researcher from different countries, for example, Australia, Netherlands, Japan, Korea. So in 2005, we have one volunteer from Sydney University working in one of ACIAR project that based in the university in field of economic and rural development. So that's for the university. So you can ask me more later. Now I have I have worked in the university for 22 years, and aside from teaching the econometrics and agriculture and value chain, we as we also contribute to help to develop the capacity of young researcher and staff through study and research and projects, and especially with the short course training. So last year, our team was lucky to work with Jenny and David to organize workshop training on data, on digital data collection, and it was highly appreciated by all the participants. And we hope that after this webinar and later on, we can organize such the training, so it's very helpful and improve the capacity of our young researcher and staff, not only for the university, but in other university and research institute, and also in the government agencies working in agriculture in different places in Vietnam. So for the volunteer to come here, we will follow the activity that are scheduled in our program. Basically, we have in classroom workshop that you will interact directly to the participant, and also with the mentorship method. The volunteer also will interact virtually with the mentees. And aside from that, we also have the field trip to some rural places in Vietnam. So VNUA will support in all the facilities, equipment for in-class room, like the rooms, the projector, the Wi-Fi, and other facility that needed for our in-class training. For the field trip, VNUA will do contact with the local government and make all the logistic arrangement for our field work. And hopefully that we will make your field work to be interesting and helpful for all of us. So I think that's all from my side. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hoang. I'm Recruitment Officer for the Australian Volunteer Program in Vietnam. And I'm here today to provide you an overview of the Australian Volunteer Program, tips working in cross-culturally, particularly Vietnam, and our initiative, Remote Volunteering. The Australian Volunteer Program started in Vietnam in 1985, and more than 1,000 Australian volunteers have worked in Vietnam till now. The new Australian Volunteer Program commenced on 1st January 2018, and the program is delivered by ABI in consortium with the Cardinal and the Willem Group. Majority of our volunteer assignment based in the north and remaining in central Vietnam. And our strategic partner organizations are government, institutions, and followed by local NGOs. We apply a strategic, long-term, and demand-driven approach aligned with Australia Aid Investment Plan, as well as retaining the flexibility to respond emerging priorities. Our volunteer assignment focus on enabling engaging private sector for development and assisting the development and employment of highly skilled workforce, promoting women economic empowerment, including ethnic minorities, and supporting disability inclusive development and the Health Security Corp initiative. The program, the Australian Volunteer Program, are very positively received within the local communities and government of Vietnam. The program has a reputation for skilled and experienced volunteers. Our volunteer, Dr. Michael Parson, has been awarded a Friendship Medal for his contribution by the President of Vietnam. And the support and resources are provided to volunteer. The program provides return flights to Australia and appropriate visa for volunteer and approved accompanying dependents. Volunteers also participate in pre-departure briefing, in-country orientation, and language training. volunteers receive medical assessment, vaccination, and 24 hours emergency support. The volunteer also receive comprehensive security information that enable them to develop their individual security plan and 24-hour emergency support and access to confidential counseling. Living and accommodation allowance also provided to enable volunteers to find a safe and secure accommodation and have a modest lifestyle within the local communities. And when working and living overseas, the volunteer will be faced with many challenges. Most of them are manageable, but whilst others can be a little bit larger. And apart the support the volunteer will get from partner organization, our in-country team will provide support and advice that volunteers need to make their volunteer assignment rewarding and comfortable. So that brings to my next point, working effectively in cross-culture in Vietnam. So as you might know, Vietnam is influenced by hierarchical structure in Confucianism. So commonly, most Vietnamese people, they have the obligation to respect people who are older than them. So after nationality, name, age will be the first question you will be asked. It is important for Vietnamese people to know your age so they can address you properly and communicate with you appropriately. At dinner, the eldest person is the first, and at home or at work, their opinion carry more weight. So we would recommend you to apply some key principles like respect, soft approach, and avoid confrontational in a big group when you in communication with your supervisor or your senior. And of course, the Vietnamese people, Vietnamese partner organization are welcome your idea, your perspective, and they really value the challenge, when you come on board and you challenge their approach or you challenge their intervention, project intervention, etc. But remember the key principle that now when you communicate your ideas with your peers and your senior supervisor. Another fact is that Vietnamese people are very family oriented. Even at work environment, people will treat you as a part of family and taking care of you when you are sick or inviting you to wedding or housewarming party and so on. But the people here is quite curious and they might inquiring you about everyday doing, your personal life. And this is quite foreign for you, for the volunteer at times, and the volunteer might find intimacy at times. But if the volunteer listen, if you listen if you listen, you will learn how things are doing in Vietnamese way, and you will appreciate that this is a good intention that the people try to integrate you into the local culture. Communication-wise, Vietnam people like to say yes more often than no. So there is only one word for no, không, but yes have several Vietnamese words like dạ, and it can be it can have different meaning like I heard you or keep going or you're right. So learning how to say yes in Vietnamese is easy, but learning how to use yes in different contexts and understanding the meaning of yes require times and experience. Another thing is negative questions. Vietnam people say yes to approve the negation. For instance, you might ask, "This isn't your house, is it?" Yes, meaning yes, it's not my house. So we would suggest you to ask all questions several times and in different ways, and ask open questions rather than leading questions. And my last point is, I would like to share with you is the remote volunteering. So due to the impact of COVID-19, our volunteers, we have to delay the mobilization and volunteer mobilization until foreseeable future. The program committed to mobilize the volunteer again when it is safe and practical to do so. So we have the new Australian program has new initiative, remote volunteering, which will enable Australian volunteers to share skills remotely with partner organizations. And the current focus of this initiative is support partner organization with volunteers who was repatriated in March 2020 due to COVID-19 or volunteers who attended their pre-budget briefing but unable to start their assignment. Given the challenge of working remotely, remote volunteer focus on the assignment that set small objective and reasonably achieved. Example of the assignment have worked well, like support writing proposal or mentoring staff on a project, support in communication strategy or proofreading document and submission. So that brings to the end of my talk today, and thank you for your attention.
Hello everyone, my name's Jay Anderson. I'm a plant pathologist. I work on diseases of subtropical and tropical crops. And in February 2019, I went to Southern Laos PDR on a short-term assignment there. And I want to talk today a little bit about what I think people can get out of volunteering, and then also what you can bring to volunteering. So I hope you get a lot out of it. So I went to Southern Laos PDR to undertake a banana leaf disease survey. My partner organisation there was the Provincial Agricultural and Forestry Organisation, PAFO, and it was an Australian Volunteers Program placement. And I was based in Savannah Cat, but I worked in the province of Champasak as well. And in that 6-week placement, I went out with my PAFO colleague, and she and I went out and looked at banana plants in help of smallholder farmers. So we'd drive around to villages, and my PAFO colleague Sang would talk to the local people and say, do you mind if we inspect your banana plants for banana leaf diseases? So we had an aim of trying to establish which banana leaf diseases were present in the area there. Sorry, I'm just moving this so I can see the timer. Okay, so what Sang and I would do day to day, we'd drive around and look for banana plants, and together we'd walk through the banana plantations, and I would demonstrate to Sang what kind of disease symptoms we should be looking for, and she would teach me about the local banana varieties that were present there. And we'd then take samples from these banana plants and take them back to the lab and process them in the lab to identify which causal organism caused the diseases, and then also to prepare samples to go either back through into Australia under quarantine or into international collections for identification. And so both Sang and I were working together, and we did field work and laboratory work together. We also, also part of that was a Crawford Fund, it was also a Crawford Fund placement. So I travelled around with and worked very closely with Professor Lester Burgess, and he has a big interest in vegetables and in watermelons. So we'd also do a few surveys looking at watermelons crops along the way. So since I've returned, I've also been involved in WhatsApp groups, identifying symptoms of diseases that my colleagues in Laos PDR have sent to me via WhatsApp. And then I've also, along with Professor Burgess, put together a small grant to the Australian Embassy in Laos PDR for a grant to help a small avocado industry, or to establish an avocado industry in the south of the country. So that's what I was involved in. I was asked, well, I said that earlier on the flyer, I said that it was an absolute highlight of my career doing the short-term assignment, and it really was, and it was fantastic, and it was something I'd always been interested in. I was very happy when I got to do it. So why would I recommend it? Well, there's 2 reasons. The first reason is it's an incredible learning experience. You get to learn so much. You get to see different countrysides, which maybe in the time of COVID-19 and how we're communicating remotely now, maybe not so much the countryside, but you still get the opportunity to work with colleagues who have come from a different culture, different background, and you can learn so much from them. And I also worked with some Australian colleagues that I wouldn't have worked with otherwise too. While I was doing my volunteer assignment, I got to see banana growing systems that are quite new and different to me, and I enjoyed that. And then it was also a real highlight to adopt some customs and cultures, and I wore allow sin, which is a skirt. My colleagues had recommended that I do that. And I got a really good response from local people from showing that respect and embracing that. So the first reason, why would I recommend volunteering? It's an incredible learning experience. But the second reason is more to do with yourself. And volunteering absolutely makes you bring your A game. You take everything that you know technically, you take your emotional intelligence, you take all your life experiences, and you bundle it all up together and put forward the best version of yourself. Especially when you have a short-term assignment, you know that you've only got a really little while to make a difference. So that brings me to my first point on my slide, which was your volunteering helps you draw from all aspects of your life, not just your professional skills, and you're putting forward the best version of yourself. The second point I want to make is that your youth or your newness can be an advantage. And you might feel intimidated. You might think that we've got these professors who are quite experienced, and you might think, I don't have that experience like a professor, but you bring youthness and energy, and that's a real advantage. And I think that's what Australian Volunteers Program are trying to harness. You can have your, you need to be technically competent, but you can bring your energy and your youth and your energy to help push forward a project in a short period of time. And I guess the other thing that you can bring along, whether you're new or early mid-career, or even if you're later in your career, is the process of willingness of learning together. So my best mentors that I've worked with are world experts in their areas. They're recognised internationally for what they can do, and they never make you feel like they're world experts. They always take you on a journey of learning together, and I think that's something that any of us can do if we're willing to listen and participate and contribute and bring our A game with us. So when I think about that, I think about Sang and I walking through the banana plantations together, me showing her the disease symptoms and what to look out for and her showing me the banana varieties and teaching me about the local banana varieties and how to grow them. So that's the things that I wanted to really talk to you about, was that volunteering helps you draw from all aspects of your life, not just your professional skills, but your listening skills, your patience, and that your youth or your newness isn't necessarily a disadvantage. It can be an advantage because you bring energy to it. And then it's a process of learning together. And I really found my short-term appointment really quite fulfilling. I found my ongoing interactions with my Lao colleagues and my new Australian colleagues that I linked up with through this really fulfilling, and I'd like you to consider that too.
Hello everyone. So my name is Robbie, and today I'm going to talk about science communication, and we'll discuss some key steps for effective communication, as well as what a workshop on science communication for researchers might look like. So whenever I explain what I do for a living, the most common response I get is, I had no idea that was even a job. And you know, if we're doing our job correctly, we tend to work in the shadows as well. I particularly like to push forward the people who are doing the work, the scientists, as the main people as communicators. And that's what this kind of workshop can work as well, to try and give you the skills to confidently go out and present your work in a manner that'll get your point across and help answer a lot of the questions out there in the community. And while I have a title of science communication, and it's a job for some of us, the skills and tools we use are not too dissimilar to what you have and use in your own lives and work. Anytime you've had to explain a complex concept to someone who's not familiar with the subject, you're effectively doing what a science communicator does. You have done this using maybe sharing a story, just like Jay said before, how she was walking through the banana fields, detecting diseases. You may have used an analogy to help make the point relevant to the person that you're talking to. Photos and graphs are always great talking points. Just have a visual that you can show, and that can break, as I say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that can definitely help people get a image in their mind to then start to understand the complex concept that you're trying to communicate. And it doesn't have to be the best image either. It can be drawing a picture. I mean, I know a lot of researchers have experiences of drawing something on a napkin or on a back of a bar mat or a coaster. Just to get a concept across. Drawing a picture can be really easy, which I'll point on later on, that keeping things simple is a really important concept to science communication. In a way, your experience may have been similar to a show and tell situation back in primary school, if you can cast your minds back to then. I hope this translates over to Vietnam as well, whereby back when you were 7, 8, 9 years old, and you would bring along to class, say, a grasshopper that you found in your garden that morning, or your, I don't know, a recent present that you received for your birthday, and you bring along to class and sharing it with your classmates and telling the story around that. And in a way, working with that analogy, I personally feel that I'm like a primary school teacher in many ways, just with a fancier title, whereby I bring people together, sometimes in a circle on the floor, like I have in, say, Lao, and to show and tell their stories and nurture their skills as well, which is what I tend to do in workshops with scientists. There's some important parts to that definition. Again, bringing people together, showing and telling their stories and nurturing their skills, that I'll break down, which are relevant to running a science communication workshop. The first is bringing people together, which is what this proposed workshop is doing in essence, in an effort to help researchers in Vietnam and Australia to work collaboratively with farmers to assist current and future ACIAR projects. So bringing people together can be the hardest part of science communication, and is why many, well, I actually hope all science communicators make this the first step when developing a strategy. It's not the funnest step. We often start to think how we're going to communicate. We're going to have YouTube videos, we're going to have podcasts, we're going to have webinars like this, all the glossy stuff. But taking this time to actually understand who we want to communicate and who needs to be involved in the discussion is really important. So understanding your audience from the beginning helps with identifying who you want to influence, what they want to know, how they like to be communicated with, which will then help you with understanding the methods and channels you'll use. And much like in research, you want to understand the challenges or issues that they have, and how then we go about clarifying or solving those challenges and issues. So the number one challenge that I can see with this project will be, in understanding your audience, will be language. So we are working collaboratively here to work with Vietnamese colleagues and Australian colleagues, because there's not going to be too many Australian researchers who are fluent in Vietnamese. And at the end of the day, we're coming back to our audience. We want to be having ongoing collaborative discussions with farmers who will most likely not have finished even primary school in a lot of cases, or even gone to school at all. So that's something to consider. There's the language, and there are, it doesn't discount that we can't do it, but there are many ways actually to overcome this. And the first one is this workshop, that by putting researchers from Vietnam and Australia together, you can start to learn from each other about the strengths and weaknesses that each of you have. And as what Hanh said before, the cultural aspects that you need to consider as well when communicating with the farmers. So Hanh said how there's many cultural sensitivities in Vietnam, like there is all through Asia, in terms of understanding and adhering to the chain of command. It can be kind of difficult to do that, particularly coming from Australia, but it is important, and respecting the elderly and establishing those personal relationships as well. My wife, she does a lot of research over in Lao PDR, as well as in Vietnam and Thailand, and the success of her project she puts down to is her being able to share a beer with her colleagues, even with farmers as well. Some of the best results that they've received is being able to share a chicken that they killed that day, the farmer killed that day, and sharing a beer, and then getting across what they need to. So it's about, you can't jump straight into the science, or you can't jump straight into, you need to do this. It's about breaking it down to the simplest formats, and having that connection, which again, it's the people. It's always about the people. I mentioned how there's ways to do this. So champions are something that you really should look to try and establish locally. So we look at it from Australian perspective. We used to do this through local ag extension officers, which are unfortunately a dying breed here in Australia. And also champion farmers as well. And no doubt it will translate over in Vietnam as well. There'll be, ag extension is thankfully still a massive thing in Southeast Asia. They understand the importance of it, to have that facilitation between research and the farmers. There needs to be that middle person, which is where the science communicators can work in as well. But that local champion is really important. And especially in projects like this, where it can be a bit of a rotating door of researchers coming through the country, as well as local researchers as well. I mean, you're talking about early to mid-career researchers. They'll move on in the future and move to the cities and universities. So having someone who's more consistent there all the time, that's definitely something that you want to have. You also want to have really well written notes to share. I find working with English as a second language that a lot of the people will be better at reading than they will be able to following you conversationally. So while there's this mantra with slides and all that to not have too much text, in this instance, it can be better to have a lot of text up there explaining it and letting it sink in as well. Giving time to sink in is an important thing with running a workshop in a country where English is a second language, and that also flows on further down as well, is giving the information, but keeping it as simple as you can. It's a very hard thing to weigh, to balance. And then it's a case of all rinse and repeating, and repetition is key with running a workshop, as well as with communicating and building those champions and personal connections as well. I think I'm starting to go more over my time than the others have. The last thing I wanted to mention is the need to evaluate as well, to have a feedback loop. And that's where, again, those champions and local external relations officers are really helpful, as well as with the language aspect. And bringing back to my start of the audience, this is how you're going to find the challenges from those farmers as well. So always continually looking to evaluate, bringing in that feedback is essential. So while this workshop might seem fun, and it would be great to be able to talk about how to produce YouTube videos and brochures and even mobile apps, and that would be something that you would do. The first things is getting the fundamentals right of understanding what the challenges are, the people that you need to communicate with, and then you can move on to the fun stuff, which is playing in those digital and social medias, or however you might want to do it. I mean, one of the better ways that I've ever seen communication in agriculture was having local children paint about how they reproduce plants in a local nursery when I was in the Solomon Islands. And that, again, is the visual thing, it's a story thing, and it's a children thing. That if a child can get it, then anyone can get it. Thanks.
All right, hi everyone. Thank you, Robbie. My name's Eleanor Dean, and I am the General Manager for Outreach and Capacity Building at the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research. We're here in Canberra, and I just wanted to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from Ngunnawal land, and to acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. It's great to be with you today. I wanted to tell you a little bit about ACIAR and ACIAR's capacity building programs, and also about some of our work in Vietnam, and how COVID is impacting us and the activities that we do. So ACIAR is Australia's agricultural research for development agency. So we do agricultural research in developing countries in the Indo-Pacific. In Vietnam in particular, we have 13 projects happening at the moment, ranging across a whole lot of disciplines, including climate resilience for rice farming in the Mekong Delta, aquaculture projects, forestry as well. And there's lots of really great information on our brand new website. So please go to the new ACIAR website and have a look there at our country pages, because you can see all of the projects that we have going at the moment in the various countries in which we work. And we're very proud of that resource. So please have a look at it, because it looks awesome. And I'm not biased at all on that. So we also have a mandate to build the capacity of agricultural researchers in the countries in which we work. So that's something that's in the ACIAR Act. It's not just about doing the research, but also capacity building for agricultural researchers. So we have a number of programs that really tackle that and address that. So we have 3 fellowship programs. One supports agricultural researchers to come and study in Australia to do their PhD or Masters at an Australian university. We have a 6-week leadership program, and we also early this year, started a very new fellowship program for women. So that was really recognising the role that women have to play as agricultural researchers, and to bring their unique perspectives into the picture, and to address what are some of the issues in developing countries that are stopping women from being in more senior and leadership programs, and how can we help them develop the skills and identify the opportunities to make their way up the ladder, or show leadership in different ways in the things in which we do. So that's the Merrill Williams Fellowship. So we're very proud and excited about that program. We also have a fellowship program in the scholarship program in the Pacific, where we are providing funding for people to do master's level study at Fiji National University and the University of the South Pacific as well. So as well as that, we work a lot with our alumni. So they are people who have done our programs in the past, have done our fellowships, and connected with us, and we consider them to be our alumni. There's probably over 1,000 alumni from the history of ACIAR. We know where about 650 are or have contact details with them, but we're always interested in reconnecting with more. And they're the people that we've worked with in the past that we want to continue having a relationship with and engaging with them as well. So we certainly do a lot of activities to continue connecting with our alumni in country as well. And in response to COVID, we recently invited our alumni to submit proposals for some short-term funding that was COVID related. So we called that our Alumni Research Support Facility. So we're really pleased to be able to be working with those people and supporting them to lead projects in their home institution with some funding for that at the moment. But of course, everything that we have done is impacted by COVID, and the travel restrictions have making things very difficult, and the fact that nobody really knows what's happening. So looking at this topic today of volunteering opportunities, you know, there's things that we have done and things that we'll like to do in the past, but a lot of things are paused at the moment. So we do have some programs for Australian researchers as well. For the last few years, we've supported internships where that started off working with people who were doing MBAs and we wanted to attract more people into the field of agribusiness and to support that and to have a growing cohort of agribusiness professionals and researchers, and so we were able to offer internships for Australians to go and work alongside an ACIAR project. Now, unfortunately, that can't happen at the moment because of COVID and the travel restrictions, but we certainly hope to have that as an opportunity again for Australians to be involved in that sort of thing. We've also had some volunteering opportunities through AVI. We've certainly been keen to find opportunities to have people go and experience working on an ACIAR project. We were particularly hoping to build a program around farmers and to get some farmers to go and work on the ACIAR projects. But also through that, we identified that a lot of the project staff were quite keen to bring in some specific skills, and the Australian Volunteering Program was certainly a great vehicle for that. Again, travel restrictions have meant that that sort of effort is put on hold, but it is an opportunity, in the future, I hope, but of course, none of us know when things will change. We're just, have to wait and see, I guess, on that. So, volunteering at the moment, it's really about how creative can we be, what can we look at that we can do to support people and to increase this engagement and exchange of ideas and information in the digital world. So we are certainly having to think about what can we do to continue to support capacity building for agricultural researchers when travel isn't possible. So some of our fellowship programs just can't occur at the moment, or they're on hold until things change, or we're trying to think about what can we do differently. So certainly online learning is something that we're really interested in and looking to develop some resources that we'd like to open, and make available very widely within this sector. Events like this one we're having today as well, and increasing our professionalism and facilities and expertise around it are certainly things that we are looking at and very quickly getting into that world. We're certainly interested in creative ideas around that. So in terms of our online learning, we're hoping in the first half of next year to be able to to launch a portal with a whole lot of modules that will look to increase people's skills and experience, and would be communicating widely about those. And also to look again at what more we can do in this space of the Alumni Research Support Facility. We do plan to have a second round, so that's an opportunity for international alumni of ACIARs to engage with us again, but we'll be refining the selection criteria for that. So I guess it's really tricky to talk about what we can do at the moment when so much is up in the air. The known unknowns are many, but I guess if I was a futurist, which I'm not, but if I was, I can see from some of the conversations that I'm participating in that there are real issues in this sector around travel and have the need to quarantine. And as some things do start to loosen up, I think that there will be a much bigger appetite to engage with local providers, to see people spending a longer time in country, and that there may be more opportunities for people who are choosing to live overseas. Because the sort of fly in, fly out modality of doing things just won't be practical. So, I mean, if you have to quarantine at your own expense at both ends of your trip, you're not going for a 5-day meetings, you know. So if, I guess, to people who are early mid-career researchers that are looking for opportunities, I would just speculate that I think people who are in a position where they would like to live overseas and be long-term and be then able to move around within that country and region, that there might be more opportunities to do things in that context. So, you know, that's just a bit of guessing on my point of view, from my point of view, but I put that out there as a view. Also within our capacity building activities, we've always sourced cohorts of people from the different countries in which we work. We've brought them to Australia, and that's been a really important part of what we're doing, having this sort of interaction and experience of being in Australia, meeting Australian people, developing the relationship with us here in ACIAR and getting to know what we're about. And that continues to be a really strong and important part of the program, but that might be something that we have to put to the side for a little while and think about, you know, how can we deliver training opportunities to people? And when I say training itself, it can be science skills, it can be leadership skills, science communication, all these sorts of things are always in demand. But how can we deliver these things in country? So who are the professional people in country that have these skills and can deliver this training, so that we can then, say, put a regional or country specific cohort together and have a program delivered in that way, rather than in the way that we've always done it, bringing people here. And of course, doing things online is really important as well, and there's been lots of that, but it isn't the same as face-to-face. I think networking, engaging, you know, a 2-week workshop can't be done in a couple of Zoom meetings, you know, that. So just acknowledging that you can't replace with digital. So so that's just a couple of thoughts, I guess, from me in, I think, what might happen in that space. I wish I could say more about tangible opportunities that I think there are for now, but just at this moment, I think there's a little bit of watch this space that needs to go.
Okay, thank you so much to our wonderful panel of speakers. Thank you to Nga, to Hanh, to Jay, to Robbie and Eleanor. It's so helpful to hear your insights, and I hope everybody who's kind of listening in at the moment is now feeling as excited as I am about getting involved, you know, understanding that we don't necessarily know exactly what these opportunities will look like, but to be involved in volunteering and in capacity development. So we're about to move on to our Q&A session. But before we do that, there's an important link that we'd like to share with you now. And we're just going to be adding that into the chat in just a moment. This is for those of you who are interested in being involved in the in-country assignment in Vietnam at VNUA, or those who are interested in volunteering remotely. If you'd like to now register your interest, you can do so at the link. And this is for both Australian and for Vietnamese EMCRs. In the link, in the survey, there's a few questions, and they're intended for us to be able to help tailor the assignments. And if you do register your interest, then we'll be able to give you updates about when we can call for expressions of interest, and you'll also receive newsletters from the Australian Volunteers Program. This survey link, or register your interest link, is also shared on our RAID live stream Facebook post. So yes, please do take a few minutes, 5 minutes maximum, to fill that in. Okay, now we'll get into our Q&A, and I'll hand back to Mia for that.
Great, thanks Jenny. And thanks so much for everyone's input. That was great to hear, and it was so fabulous. And I'm sure all of you have many questions. There have been a few that have already come in already, but if you would like to ask a question, we ask that you do type it into the Q&A function rather than the chat, just so we can have them all together at that time. But I'd like to kickstart the Q&A by asking a question, I guess, for the whole panel. What do you think is the most important skills to have when you are volunteering? So whoever would like to jump in first, feel free to unmute yourself as you go, I guess. Robbie, what do you think? I'm going to chuck you in the deep end here.
Thanks. I haven't volunteered myself. Oh no, that's sorry. I did a gap year a long time ago. I would say a willingness to try anything in terms of eating. I found you'll go to these countries and you'll be plated up with a lot of things that you have no idea where it's come from or what it looks like. The smells can be sometimes quite off-putting. But it's definitely something that you need to take on board. What Hanh said before, how they're very family orientated, and it won't be out of the ordinary that they'll invite you along to birthdays or weddings or whatever, where you'll have to do karaoke and drink beer and eat something that may not work with your vegan diet. So that is what I would say. Be very open to anything, particularly around food.
Jay, what do you think as a returned volunteer? What do you think are the most important skills to have when you are volunteering?
I think, I'm sorry, I've just dropped out and dropped back in, but I think listening and, really listening to what people are saying, and take advice from, so Australian Volunteers Program or whoever you're working with, take advice for them around the cultural tips they give you. And just really, I think, prepare before you, if you're doing something, like this webinar, prepare the best you can and then just enjoy the whole process. Or if you're working in country, prepare the best you can before you go to the country and then just really enjoy it and embrace and just enjoy the ride kind of thing. I think that's a great learning experience, and you'll listen really carefully to what people are trying to tell you, maybe with their words or with their actions.
Yeah, great. And so Hanh, have you got something to add to that? What, in your experience, what do you think is the most important skills to have when you are recruiting volunteers, or that you encourage volunteers to have?
Yeah, I think patient and flexible is very important. Patient is very important in the workplace because sometimes the volunteer do things very quickly, and for example, they produce a report and they haven't got feedback from team member as yet, but they have to understand that people have their own agenda and they might get back later on that, and the volunteer need to accommodate that pace. And flexible is something very important because the work in Vietnam changing very quickly, so the volunteer have to accommodate with their agenda, the partner organization agenda.
Great, thanks for that. So we'll move on to a question we have, which someone asks, can you please tell us briefly how to register in the volunteering program if the volunteers are Vietnamese and currently in Vietnam? So maybe Han or Na, do you want to speak to that, Na, firstly?
I think for the register in a volunteer program in Vietnam, I don't have experience. Maybe I hand in this to Hanh, or other people have experience with this. Is it okay, Hanh?
Yes, the Australian volunteer program is open is the Australian citizen. In terms of Vietnamese people wanted to volunteering, they can apply through the local NGOs or INGOs, and they have opportunities open for internship. But in Vietnam, the Australian volunteer program, we don't have a scheme for Vietnamese volunteer as yet.
Yes, that's true. Okay, so we have a question here for Eleanor, directed to Eleanor. What's the process of finding out about volunteering opportunities with ACIAR?
Well, I think at the moment it's probably fair to say that there really aren't volunteering opportunities at the moment with ACIAR, but always keep an eye on our website. You know, in the past, we've had some opportunities that have been delivered through ABI, so through the Australian Volunteers Program, and they've been advertised. So if those opportunities come up again in the future, they'll be advertised through the ABI portal. So that is one that I would look at. Our internships that we've done in the past, they've usually been sort of connected through, you know, partner universities in Australia looking for the right person with those sorts of skills. So, I mean, and of course we have our graduate program, which is, you know, advertised nationally every year. I just wanted to make a point to the first question that we had as well, around the skills. With these sorts of volunteer placements, they're very much technical placements. So it is volunteering to use your expertise in agriculture to do things. So in terms of those skills, is to remember that you're bringing technical expertise to these sorts of projects and activities. And the really important thing, I think, is to share what you know as much as possible. So I just wanted to add to that a willingness to share your knowledge with the people that you're with is a really important part of it, not to just come in and do a job and get out, but to actually, you know, be working with other people who are knowledgeable as well, but to exchange information at a professional level as well, and to help build everybody's knowledge and experience.
Great, thanks, Eleanor. Jenny, do you want to add something to that one?
Yes, I just wanted to add to, particularly for this volunteer experience that we're working on at the moment, is that this is really looking at something that is a little bit different to what has been done in the model typically, and that this is a way really that we're trying to work with early and mid-career researchers in Australia and in Vietnam, who maybe sometimes you feel like, oh, I haven't quite got the skills, or I haven't quite got the experience to be volunteering. But in this case, we're not actually necessarily looking for that. We are aiming to help to support you in that and to facilitate how you can share, as Eleanor was saying, share whatever you've got. And it's that exchange of knowledge that is really valuable. So thanks, Mia.
We have a question here which is quite a paragraph, and I won't read it all out. I think it's probably aimed more at Robbie and the science communicators out there. The question is about what strategies would you suggest for those working in academia who struggle to quantify impact beyond standard academic measurements. So Robbie, did you want to talk about that, and anyone else who wants to jump in as well?
Yeah, I was reading that in the Q&A. It's a great question. And it's something that, when running these kind of workshops for researchers and academics, is what they're trying to get out of the workshop. Because, I too come from so I did degrees in biotechnology and worked in plant genetics for a while. And I understand the process of science and the need to trying to quantify and qualify things that you want to measure and then change, and then you can show that you've had an impact. And unfortunately, humans don't really work that way. You talk to sociologists in the same manner, and they have totally different measurements to the way we do in the physical science. So that's probably where I would start the conversations, is actually cross-pollination within universities and academia, the sociology departments and hard sciences departments is a great place, because it's kind of a neutral ground where you're working with, and those collaborative efforts can be really great and get a lot of attention as well. Helps with funding as well. But then in countries outside of Australia, it's a whole new broad game as well. So again, if you can work with people who have been in the country for quite a long time, they may not be really associated with your branch of science, but they haven't a understanding of the culture, and will probably be able to put you in the right direction as to who you need to talk to, who will then be able to answer your questions on how do you go about measuring this thing, and how do you create an impact without coming across as the white people trying to change something, which is something that we've been getting a lot better at doing. And things like this is only helping in that situation. I think this next generation of science and researchers have a greater understanding of the social aspects associated with science, and so it's great to hear those questions as well coming through.
Great, thanks for that, Robbie. Did anyone else want to add anything to that question? We have a couple of others as well. No? Okay, so we've got a question here which is a bit more related to remote volunteering. So what might the remote volunteering opportunities look like? How do you envisage people could offer their skills remotely? Hanh, did you want to start that one off, and then we could move to Jenny if she wants to add anything, and the others as well, as I think Nah might have has dropped out.
Yeah. Ali, I would like to invite Ali to answer these questions.
Okay, Ali, do you want to jump in? Ali's from the Australian Volunteers Program. You can put your video on if you'd like. There we go.
Sure. Hi everyone. So remote volunteering is a very new initiative for the Australian Volunteers Program. It was born very quickly when we started repatriating all of our volunteers when COVID-19 started to impact travel. But we were very lucky that we had developed some prototypes last year on open volunteering. So we had a little bit of practice on working with volunteers remotely, and then sped up the process over the last 3 months. But we're still very much testing models at the moment. So we're rolling out remote volunteering in a couple of phases. The first phase involved working with our repatriated volunteers. So they were volunteers who were on assignment in country and already had a relationship with a partner organisation. And they worked together to design a short assignment that the volunteer could continue back in Australia. And the second phase that we're in the middle of at the moment works with volunteers who were recruited, but because of COVID-19 couldn't quite get on the plane. So this is the phase where we're going to be working out all of those questions I can see around, how do you build a relationship with someone you haven't met? how do you build cultural awareness and understanding from Australia? How does the partner organisation get to know the volunteer? So we're figuring that out at the moment, and we'll end up having about 200 volunteers working in that space. And then moving forward, we'll start to figure out what remote volunteering looks like with new partner organisations and new volunteers being recruited. And the model we're thinking of working on with RAID is going to be more of a mentoring model at this stage. So that's why we're inviting expressions of interest from both Australian researchers and Vietnamese researchers to see if there's a way we can help connect you to either talk and get to know each other and potentially share skills down the track. But it's an expression of interest at the moment, and we would love to know who's interested in getting involved and making a couple of friends, you know, in different places.
Yeah, that's great. And the expressions of interest, we've got the survey that I think has been posted in the chat, and we've also got our email, raid.partnerships@crawfordfund.org, which will be posted as well. So those expressions of interest can, we more than welcome more, and it'd be great to know, yeah, if you're interested in this volunteering position. Jenny, did you want to add anything to that? Okay, great. And Hanh, yeah, Eleanor?
I just wanted to add that I think the mentoring side of it is probably very strong in a remote volunteering. It's that sort of building a one-to-one connection with someone or a small group of people, and offering advice and you know, sharing information and exchange of experiences and ideas. I think in our earliest thinking about how we might be able to do this sort of thing without travel, it does tend to come back to sort of a mentoring type relationship, or more of a equals, a buddying, like let's find somebody who's, you know, got about the same amount of experience and working on something similar, and to try and buddy people together to share information and continue those connections. That seems to be a pretty strong theme in this sort of way.
Great. Did anyone else want to add anything to that? I think we'll wrap up in a minute if anyone doesn't want to add anything else. Well, if you are interested in these opportunities, please do email us at raid.partnerships@crawfordfund.org. I think Beck has just posted that in the chat window, so that's there for you. Also, if you are watching this at a later date or think of more questions that you want to ask, please head to our RAID members platform, which the link should be shared soon. This is a new way that RAID members are going to be able to communicate, and we are keen to keep the discussion going about today's webinar and keep you up to date with any progress that we make as well. If you aren't a member of RAID, please do sign up. It is for free. And don't forget to fill in the survey registration form that Jenny spoke about. And this should be also in the chat. The link should be in the chat soon as well. It only takes 5 minutes, and you can do it right now if you'd like. We will also be emailing you all with that link as well, and you should also be getting that as the webinar finishes. So our next exciting events for RAID include a webinar looking at how COVID has impacted smallholders in different regions. So stay tuned for details on our website and social media, and events during Science Week. You can hear from young, passionate scientists talking about their diverse and rewarding work in developing countries and how you can get involved too, wherever you are. So you can join our free live interactive 60-minute panels and Q&A during National Science Week across the 17th to 19th of August. So you can head to the RAID or Crawford websites for more information if you'd like that. So once again, I just want to thank the panel members all so much. It was such a a great chance to hear from you and for you to share your knowledge, passion and exciting opportunities. Thank you to all the attendees for your engagement as well. This webinar has been recorded and will be on our website, as well as up as the live stream on our Facebook page as well. So thank you all, and stay safe and have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.